It was a cold evening in the city. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows on the pavement. Inside a fancy restaurant, people laughed and ate expensive meals. The air smelled of fresh bread, roasted meat, and sweet desserts. Outside, a girl stood near the back door of the restaurant. She was thin, her clothes were old, and her shoes had holes in them. Her name was Emma. Every night she waited near the restaurant, hoping to find some leftover food. The restaurant workers knew her. Some of them felt sorry for her and secretly left food near the trash bins. Emma always took the food carefully, making sure no one was watching. She was ashamed, but she had no choice. Her little brother, Leo, was waiting for her at home. He was sick and hungry. That night, as Emma picked up a small bag of leftover bread and chicken, she felt someone watching her. She turned around quickly, but she saw nothing. Shrugging, she pulled her hoodie over her head and walked away. What she didn't know was that someone was watching her. Inside the restaurant, sitting by the window, was a young man named Ryan. He was the son of a famous millionaire, Mr. Anderson. Ryan had everything: money, expensive cars, designer clothes, but he often felt bored. Tonight, as he sipped his coffee, his eyes caught something unusual. He saw Emma taking food from the back of the restaurant. At first, he thought she was a worker, but then he noticed her clothes. She wasn't a worker. She was a poor girl looking for food. Ryan had never seen someone do that before. He lived in a world of luxury where no one worried about food. He was curious. Who is she? Why is she taking leftovers? When Emma started walking away, Ryan made a decision. He stood up, left some money on the table, and quietly followed her. He didn't know why he was following her. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something else. But as he walked behind her, keeping a safe distance, he started to feel uneasy. The streets she walked through were dark and empty. The buildings looked old and dilapidated. After 10 minutes, Emma entered a small, abandoned-looking house. Ryan hesitated, then walked closer. He peeked through a broken window. What he saw made his heart stop. Inside, Emma was kneeling beside a small boy. The boy was lying on a thin mattress, coughing weakly. Emma took out the food and gave him a piece of bread. "Eat this, Leo," she said softly. Leo's hands trembled as he took the bread. "Thank you, Emma," he whispered. Ryan felt a strange feeling in his chest. He had never seen this kind of poverty before. He had never seen someone so desperate, so hungry. For the first time in his life, Ryan Anderson felt powerless. Ryan stood frozen outside the broken window. His heart pounded. He had always lived in luxury, never knowing what hunger felt like. Now, he was staring at a reality he never imagined. Emma broke the leftover bread into small pieces, making sure Leo ate slowly. She gave him some water from an old plastic bottle. "Are you feeling better?" she asked. Leo nodded weakly. "Yes, but you didn't eat." Emma smiled. "I'll eat later." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. He saw the way Emma looked at her brother with love, with sacrifice. She was hungry too, but she gave all the food to him. Suddenly, a cold wind blew, making Ryan shiver. He took a step back and accidentally kicked a small tin can. It made a loud clank. Emma's head snapped up. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice sharp with fear. Ryan held his breath. He thought about running away, but before he could move, Emma stood up and rushed to the window. Her eyes met his. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Emma's face turned pale. She recognized Ryan. She had seen him before, sitting inside the fancy restaurant, eating expensive meals. He was one of them, the rich people who never cared about the poor. "What do you want?" she demanded. Her voice was strong, but Ryan could see the fear in her eyes. Ryan hesitated. What could he say? He had followed her out of curiosity, but now, standing in front of her, he felt ashamed. "I saw you," he admitted, taking the food. Emma's fists clenched. "So what? Are you going to tell the restaurant? Call the police?" "No," Ryan said quickly. I didn't know people lived like this." Emma's eyes filled with anger. "Of course you don't. People like you never see the real world." Ryan swallowed hard. She was right. He had spent his life in expensive hotels, private jets, and 5-star restaurants. He had never set foot in a place like this. Before he could say anything else, Leo coughed again, this time harder. Emma rushed back to him, her anger forgotten. Ryan watched as she gently placed her hand on her brother's forehead. "You have a fever," she whispered. Worry filled her voice. Ryan felt something twist inside him. He couldn't just walk away now. Is he sick? Ryan asked. Emma shot him a cold look. Why do you care? Ryan hesitated, then took a deep breath. Because I can help. Emma laughed bitterly. Help? You think throwing money at us will fix everything? Ryan shook his head. No, but I can get medicine for him, and food, real food. Emma narrowed her eyes. Why would you do that? Ryan didn't know the answer. All he knew was that he couldn't turn away. He couldn't pretend he didn't see them. Because I want to, he said simply. Emma looked at him for a long time. Finally, she let out a tired sigh. Fine. But if you're lying, don't bother coming back. Ryan nodded. I'll be back soon. He turned and walked away, his mind racing. He had never done anything like this before. His father always told him, never mix with poor people. They will take advantage of you. But Ryan didn't care. For the first time in his life, he was about to do something that actually mattered. Ryan hurried through the dark streets, his heart pounding. He had never felt this way before, determined, anxious, and strangely excited. He wasn't sure why he was helping Emma and her brother, but deep down, he knew it was the right thing to do. When he reached his house, the massive gates opened automatically. The mansion stood tall, glowing with warm lights. Inside, everything was perfect, polished floors, expensive paintings, and servants ready to fulfill any request. But for the first time, Ryan saw the emptiness in all of it. He went straight to the kitchen. I need some food, he told the chef. The chef raised an eyebrow. At this hour? For who? Ryan hesitated. If his father found out he was giving food to a poor girl, there would be trouble. Just pack some extra dinner for me. The chef shrugged and prepared a bag of warm soup, fresh bread, and fruits. Ryan took it quickly and slipped out before anyone could ask questions. Next, he needed medicine. He rushed to his father's personal pharmacy, a small room filled with expensive medications from all over the world. He grabbed a bottle of fever medicine and painkillers. As he turned to leave, a deep voice echoed behind him. Ryan? He froze. His father, Mr. Anderson, stood at the door, arms crossed. His sharp eyes studied Ryan carefully. What are you doing? His father asked. Ryan knew lying wouldn't work. He took a deep breath. I'm helping someone. His father frowned. Who? Ryan hesitated. If he told the truth, his father would be furious. He had always warned Ryan to stay away from low-class people. But Ryan had made his decision. A girl and her little brother, he said. They're sick and starving. Mr. Anderson's face darkened. Ryan, listen to me. You don't know these people. They could be thieves, scammers. You can't trust the poor. Ryan clenched his fists. They're not scammers. They're just trying to survive. His father sighed. This is not your problem. You have a future, a reputation. You can't waste time on people who will never change their lives. Ryan's chest tightened. Is that what you think? That poor people don't deserve help? Mr. Anderson's expression didn't change. I think you're making a mistake. Ryan looked at the bag of food and medicine in his hands. He knew he had to make a choice, listen to his father or follow his own heart. For the first time in his life, he disobeyed. I'm going, Ryan said firmly. Then, before his father could stop him, he ran out of the house. Emma sat beside Leo, wiping his forehead with a damp cloth. His fever was getting worse. She felt helpless. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Emma jumped up, her heart racing. Who could it be? She opened the door and gasped. Ryan stood there, holding a bag of food and medicine. His hair was messy, and he was slightly out of breath, but his eyes were filled with determination. You came back? Emma whispered. Ryan nodded. I told you I would. Emma looked at the bag in his hands. Fresh food. Medicine. Things she never expected to have tonight. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Then, without thinking, she pulled Ryan inside and shut the door. You're crazy, she muttered. But thank you. Ryan smiled. Let's save your brother. As Emma gave Leo the medicine, Ryan watched closely. He had never felt so alive, so needed. But he had no idea that trouble was coming. Because Mr. Anderson was not the kind of man to be disobeyed. Ryan watched as Emma carefully gave Leo the fever medicine. The little boy swallowed it slowly, his body weak. Emma then handed him a piece of bread and gently rubbed his back. Ryan had never seen such love before. Not in his world of luxury where money was more important than feelings. Emma looked at him. Why are you helping us? Ryan hesitated. He had asked himself the same question. Because I want to, he finally said. Because it's the right thing to do. Emma studied his face, as if searching for a lie. But she saw only sincerity. Thank you, she whispered. Before Ryan could respond, a loud bang on the door made them both jump. Bang, bang. Emma's face turned pale. Who? Ryan's stomach tightened. He had a bad feeling. The door burst open, and 3 men in black suits stormed in. Behind them, Mr. Anderson stepped inside, his face dark with anger. Ryan, his voice was cold, dangerous. Come home, now. Emma grabbed Leo protectively, her heart racing. Ryan stood up. No. Mr. Anderson's eyes narrowed. I won't ask again. Ryan shook his head. I won't leave them. Mr. Anderson let out a sharp breath. Enough. You've played your little game, but this is real life. You don't belong here. Ryan clenched his fists. And they don't deserve to suffer. Mr. Anderson's face twisted with frustration. You don't understand, Ryan. The world is unfair. You can't help everyone. Ryan stepped forward. Maybe, but I can help them. Emma watched in shock. No one had ever stood up for her before. Mr. Anderson's jaw tightened. Fine, he said coldly. He pulled out a checkbook, scribbled a number, and threw it at Emma's feet. Take this, $10,000. Stay away from my son. Emma stared at the check. It was more money than she had ever seen. Mr. Anderson smirked. Problem solved. Emma's hands trembled. She wanted to take the money. It could save Leo, give them a new life. But then she looked at Ryan. If she took the money, she would prove his father right that poor people only cared about money. Slowly, she bent down, picked up the check, and ripped it in half. Ryan's eyes widened. Mr. Anderson's face turned red with fury. Emma met his gaze. We may be poor, but we have dignity. Ryan felt something deep inside him shift. For the first time, he was proud. Mr. Anderson's fists clenched. You're making a mistake. Ryan shook his head. No, you are. A heavy silence filled the room. Then, without another word, Mr. Anderson turned and stormed out. His guards followed, leaving the torn check on the floor. Ryan exhaled, his heart pounding. He had just defied his father. Emma looked at him. You didn't have to do that. Ryan smiled. Yes, I did. Leo coughed softly. Ryan bent down and touched his forehead. The fever is going down, he said. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Because of you. Ryan shrugged. Because we helped each other. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt hope. Ryan knew his life would never be the same. He had left behind his father's world of money and power. And he didn't regret it. Because in that tiny, broken house he had found something money could never buy: purpose.